volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We are 100% in that space right now. If you're job searching right now, you're in the right place. Welcome to Land Your Next Job, the show that helps you move from ghosting and rejection to interviews and offers. I'm Erika Parker-Price, a certified career coach with a background in tech who has spent nearly a decade helping professionals land roles at companies like Microsoft, Google, and mission-driven organizations. Each week, I share what's actually working in today's job market, from LinkedIn and networking to how AI is reshaping hiring. You'll get clear strategies and inspiration so you can run this marathon without burnout or guesswork. Follow the show and let's land your next job together. Hello and welcome to Land Your Next Job. I am your host, Erika Parker-Price, and today we are talking about layoffs and AI and how those two are intersecting right now in the market. More importantly, what are the signals that we should all be taking from that? Right now, when I am recording this on Thursday, April 2nd, I am only in the second week of this podcast. And while I have a lot of podcasts that are already recorded and planned and ready to go, I felt like this conversation warranted a very current discussion. And so this one is coming to you as a bonus episode. I will still be doing podcasts every Monday, but every now and then I'm going to pop in here and share something that's more current. Now, podcasting isn't quite live, but you're actually getting this the same day I recorded it, so we're pretty close. If you're in the job market right now, I'm sure that you are also hearing about these companies that are doing layoffs, and some of you may have been impacted by these specifically or by other ones. The reason that I chose these 4 companies, Block, Atlassian, Meta, and Oracle, is they have all announced layoffs within the past few weeks. And 3 out of the 4 of them have really specifically called out AI as the reason for those layoffs. So let's get to AI washing first of all. What does that term actually even mean? Essentially, it's overstating the role of AI. This term, AI washing, I think it gets its roots from greenwashing. Remember when green products were first coming out and companies were just slapping a label on their product saying it's green, and it didn't really have any basis. It wasn't necessarily organic. They hadn't changed their ingredients. They just said it was green. What I'm talking about here is where AI is being used as the scapegoat for layoffs when it's maybe something underneath that isn't quite related to AI. And so that's what I really wanted to dig in on this week. And so I researched these 4 companies, Block, Atlassian, Meta, and Oracle, to see what is it that they're saying about AI and the role it has in layoffs, if anything, and what's really going on behind the scenes. So first of all, let's dive in with Block. I think this one was the one that grabbed a lot of headlines. For those of you that don't know the company Block, you probably do know it by the name of Square. So when you pay with your credit card to, let's say it's a food truck vendor, and they hand you that little square and ask you to tap your card, that's now called Block. They decided they needed a new company name. They announced a 40% reduction in force on February 26th. So let's see what the company is actually saying. Their CEO, Jack Dorsey, who you may remember from Twitter, said, quote, "A significantly smaller team using the tools we're building can do more and do it better. And intelligence tool capabilities are compounding faster every week." He went on to say that this wasn't because the business was struggling. Block, similar to all these companies that we're talking about right now, are all in the positive territory. Their revenue is growing. And he said, quote, "Our business is strong. Gross profit continues to grow." If you dive in a little bit deeper and you look at what their finance person is seeing, their CFO said, quote, "We see an opportunity to move faster with smaller, highly talented teams using AI to automate more work." So is this an example of AI washing? Really, time will tell. The question is, can they do exactly what they were doing or more with a 40% reduction in force? They're certainly saying they can. I think one thing that's interesting is to look at where their headcount has gone over the past several years. So if you look at them in 2019, they were just under 4,000 employees. Huge surge during the pandemic that left them over 10,000 in 2026. So even if they cut that 40%, which they've announced, even if they cut that 40%, they're still significantly larger than they were several years ago. In terms of whether or not this is AI washing, I really think what's interesting is that none of these companies are coming out and saying, this is how we've figured out how to do it differently. Everybody is saying it can do more, it can do it better, but there's very little specificity that is coming out around that. So what else do I think is going on? I think there's huge financial pressure. So their stock has been battered despite them being up 10% last year. When they made this announcement, their stock surged 24%. I don't think it can be understated that for publicly traded companies, their primary incentive is always to do what's best for the shareholders, not the employees. So this 40% reduction in force, it's going to have a huge impact on those people. Now, I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper and see, okay, if you're reducing 40%, does that mean that you're in a hiring freeze as well? And what was interesting was I went on LinkedIn and I looked up to see how many open positions do they have that have been posted in the last week. I specifically looked at posted in the last week because we all know that there's old, stale job postings on LinkedIn. I will give you that as a tip. If you were brand new and starting out your job search, sure, look at things that have been posted maybe in the last month. But if you are regularly looking at job postings, the last week is really all you need to be looking at. So they did have 46 positions that were opened in the last week. They were mostly in sales. Oddly, most of them were under the name Square, which makes me a little bit suspect that they're not posting them under their current company name block. But there were definitely some out there, mostly in sales. So I guess you could say that is fairly aligned with what they're saying, that they can do more with smaller teams. Okay, my next example is Meta. And while they have had several layoffs in the past few weeks, specifically March 25th, they cut 700 jobs. There are additional rumors that come out of Reuters that they're planning for a 20% cut. Again, this is a company that doubled their headcount during the pandemic from 2019 to 2022 and then scaled back significantly in 2023. While they're still below that number, they have been growing for the past few years. This one is still a little bit in the rumor space because that 20% number hasn't been realized yet, but it was reported by anonymous sources that they were seeking to offset costly artificial intelligence infrastructure bets and prepare for greater efficiency brought about by AI-assisted workers. So they're really going on both sides. Yes, we're spending a lot of money on building out these data centers, and we're expecting more efficiencies. In terms of how much they're spending, they've nearly doubled what was already a very high spend. They went from $72 billion to $135 billion in the last year in terms of what they're spending from a capital expenditure perspective on AI. I can't really say if they're AI washing because they haven't actually made any formal statements yet. I will say they also are posting new jobs. They have over 100 new jobs posted this week, many of them at their superintelligence labs, which isn't surprising. Like most of the rest of the companies that we're talking about here, they're in very good shape from a revenue perspective, and their stock went up after both the leak of the rumor as well as a small limited number of layoffs that happened. Okay, let's move on to Atlassian. So they announced on March 11th that they were going to be doing a 10% layoff. Their revenue is still strong. They grew 20% last year. In terms of what the company actually said, they said they were going to, quote, embrace AI and rebalance their resources to focus on the, quote, future of teamwork in the AI era. So this is the one company that actually did not get any sort of stock bump from this. So even if that's what they were aiming for, it did not happen. One of the reasons for that is when people look ahead to how the AI capabilities that are coming into companies might impact other software companies, Atlassian's products definitely come up in the conversation. So not everybody knows this company by name, but two of their well-known products out there are Confluence and Jira. Now, those are the types of SaaS products that many people are saying are in jeopardy if companies find a way to bring that type of technology in-house using their own AI capabilities. I'm not at all saying that anybody has been doing that, but does it have an impact on, for example, how much Atlassian can charge on a per seat basis for those products? It may. Okay, let's look at what was posted for them. I found 34 jobs posted this week, everything from a full stack manager to customer success manager. I will say that they're primarily at their new acquisition, a company called DX, which, as you guessed it, is an AI company. They paid over $1 billion for that AI company, and that seems to be where most of the hiring is going. The last one I'm going to talk about is Oracle, and that's the one that came up this week. I would say it was announced, but honestly, it hasn't been announced formally by the company yet as of the time of this recording. What is out there is firsthand reports from all the people that were impacted. So it's estimated that it's going to be about 20 to 30,000 employees, maybe 18% of the company, somewhere in that range. And I do want to just take a moment and pause and share my empathy for people that are going through this right now, because the way in which these layoffs are being rolled out, and I have heard so many stories from so many people at various different companies, it is never going to be good news when this is what's being delivered to you. But the impersonal nature in which it's being done is really tough. I know that it is very hard to meet with 20,000 people on an individual basis to give them this news, but I also know that companies can absolutely do better here. Contrary to the other three companies, they did not say anything about AI. They said this was a broader organizational change. Similar to the other companies, their revenue is strong. They have been doing massive investments in AI in the range of around $50 billion, which is about equivalent to a year's worth of revenue for them. So huge investments on the infrastructure side. Because there's no information coming out of the company, can't really say if this is AI washing, if this is, they were looking for a better stock price. They did get a one-day stock bump. And they also do have job openings. So there's 100 plus openings that are recent from the past week, everything from software developer to PM to, not surprisingly, data center construction. So what do these companies all have in common? Like I've been talking about, they are strongly performing companies. Their revenues are up. They are all in tech. I think those are the companies that are not only most responsive, but maybe have the highest expectations on them right now for the ability to gain efficiencies out of artificial intelligence. I think two cases in particular that are very interesting to look at are Oracle and Meta. They have both shared how much money they're spending on these data centers, about $50 billion for Oracle, somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 billion and up for Meta, both equivalent to somewhere in the range of a year's worth of revenue, huge investments to be making on one single thing. While they're very actively sharing that information, what they're not doing is coming out and sharing, this is how we're getting efficiencies in the AI space. This is how actual jobs are now being done by AI. So I think there's strong potential to say that these are AI washing, that we're saying this is because of AI, and it really is the budget that's shifting. I also think that there's really an element of timing here. I think that what these companies are saying, and I would include Atlassian and Block in this category, there's a lot of wishful, hopeful, forward-looking statements about all the efficiencies that are being gained. Are those going to be true? Is that where we're headed? I mean, the companies absolutely want to believe that that's true. And I think if you look at what's actually happening within companies, are we trending in that direction? I would say yes, definitely. But I think we still have way more questions than answers on how and where this is going to happen. And I think that's where we really get to right now, is that there is so much uncertainty out there. These companies are making these decisions based on a phenomenal amount of uncertainty. I know this term isn't as popular anymore, but if anybody remembers the acronym VUCA, V-U-C-A, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, I think we are 100% in that space right now. There have been new acronyms that people have put out there to replace VUCA, but that's the one that's really landing for me right now. The world is volatile, it is uncertain, it is absolutely complex, and it is ambiguous. So we've seen these 4 stories in the news over the last month, and the question really is, what is it that we should be learning from this? What signals should we be taking from these previous announcements and the ones to come if we are looking for what's next for ourselves? I'm going to give you 5 signals, 5 things to be paying attention to so that it isn't just noise that's coming at you. The first one is hiring patterns. Pay attention to who companies are hiring right now. And I don't mean just in your domain specifically. When I was looking at those LinkedIn postings, I was looking at the entire company, not just what they're hiring in engineering or finance or any specific domain. Look broadly at what it is they're hiring, and you're going to get the real story there of what's important to them right now. And like I said, you always want to be filtering for the most recent, maybe not just today, but really just this week, because things are changing that quickly. The second is to pay attention to the language that the company is using. And I really mean parse those words down. So when you're hearing things like efficiency and rebalance, is that really all about finance more than the jobs themselves? Or are they really talking about intelligence and saying things like AI can do this work and we need smaller teams? That's a sign that that company has made that decision already about the direction that they're heading. Third signal to pay attention to is how AI is showing up in your domain. And this isn't company specific. I'm talking about your function and your role type and paying attention to that industry wide. So not just what's happening at the company that you were at or are currently at, but what's happening. What are the signals you're getting related to your job type across the board? The fourth signal to pay attention to is the money. This one can't be emphasized enough. Where is the money actually going? So much of this information is public in earnings calls, annual reports, all of those things. And quite frankly, a lot of companies are out there bragging about where they're sending their money. And you can really rely on the numbers to see exactly what that company is prioritizing right now. And the fifth signal to pay attention to is if companies are saying anything about their organizational structure. So for the companies, whether you're reading about them, whether you're meeting with people that you know that work at those companies or you're interviewing them, what is it that they're saying about AI and organizational structure? Are they pointing to things like flatter organizational structure, something Amazon has been saying more recently? Are they talking about smaller teams? Those are signals to pay attention to as to the direction that the companies are heading. So the layoffs get all of the headlines, and they absolutely have all of the personal impact here. But many of these signals are things that are visible in advance of layoff announcements. And so that's what I'm trying to help you with, is to start paying attention to those signals, regardless of where you are in your career. So I know this is a heavy topic to come out with for my first bonus episode, but I want to share where I got the idea to come and talk about this. I went and saw the AI doc movie this past weekend. Specifically, it's called the AI doc, How I Became an Apocalyptimist. As you can probably guess, a little bit of a riff on apocalypse and optimist. I think I was naturally attracted to the title because, yes, sometimes I feel myself straddling that line between the apocalypse view on AI and the optimist view. I am by nature an optimist, but I've also had times in my life when it has been challenged. 2020 was the year that my optimism was most challenged, and I think a lot of people can relate to that for obvious reasons. In addition to what was going on in the world, it was also the year I lost my dad. It was the year that I became an empty nester, and all of those things together made it tough to be an optimist. But I have fought my way back from that. I feel like in the past few years, I've been landing on this optimist side. And then AI comes along and seems determined to challenge my optimistic viewpoint. So I thought this movie would be one for me to check out. Now, it is a documentary, and whether you are somebody who loves documentaries or doesn't, I think this one might be interesting to you. It is the teaming up of two Oscar-winning teams, the first one being the producers of Everything Everywhere All at Once back in 2022, and the other being Daniel Rohr, whose name you may not know, but he also won an Oscar for his documentary, Navalny. He is really the idea behind this whole movie, and it is not specifically focused on jobs, although that definitely comes up as a topic in it. He came up with this idea for the movie when he was expecting his first child. So his wife was 6 months pregnant. And the very first interview question that he asks everybody in the movie is now a good time to bring a baby into the world? So don't think that this is strictly a business-focused documentary, but it is definitely straddling the line between the apocalypse and the optimist, between the promise of AI and all the amazing things that it can do, and the peril of AI and what it looks like when we're blasting down the road at 1,000,000 miles an hour without a clear destination or plan in place. I definitely recommend that people go see this movie. I did go see it in the theaters, which I think is always a nice place to watch a movie. And from a business perspective, I think one of the most interesting things is that they specifically sought out the top minds in AI, as well as 5 of the top CEOs that are in this space right now. They landed 3 of them. Sam Altman from OpenAI is in the movie. Dario Amodei is in the movie, along with his sister Daniela, who co-founded Anthropic with him. And also Dennis Hassanis. He is the CEO of Google's DeepMind venture. The 2 that they asked but didn't show up were Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. So they were given an opportunity to be on it if they wanted. Because it's a documentary, I don't think I can really give away the ending. There obviously isn't an ending to this movie. But one of the most interesting things that I took away from it was an answer to the question about who is responsible for finding the answer to what I think about most in the AI space, which is how is this going to impact the job market? How is it going to impact humans on a much broader scale than just what's your next job? And spoiler alert, there is not a specific person, country, government, or company that holds that role. It is you, it is me, it is all of us. And that answer might be confusing to you right now, but I would say go see the movie. Regardless of what your feelings are on AI right now, I think that it will give you some clarity. It will tell you who the main players are in this space. And it will likely raise a lot of questions for you as well. So anyway, it was with that in mind that I decided I think we need a fresher episode on AI, even fresher than something that I recorded a couple of weeks ago. And I'll keep coming back and doing these if this is something that interests you. It also inspired me in a different way this week. So I talk a lot about people creating their own projects, their own side hustles, freelancing. If you are looking for a job out there, I think it is the perfect opportunity to be building your skills and increasing your hireability with projects in this space, whether you are getting paid for it or not. Now, I also know that I need to follow my own advice. And so this week I created my first AI assistant. I haven't rolled it out to anybody yet. I'm still tweaking it on the back end, but I did create it in Claude as a project. Honestly, the thing that blew me away was how far I got in a couple of hours with it. Like everything in AI, it all depends on how much data you have to train the assistant on. And in this case, I do enough public speaking, podcasts, webinars, all of those things that I actually do have a lot of data to train it on. Now, of course, the question on my mind as I'm doing this is, am I training this assistant to be me? Is this going to take me out of my own position as a coach? I think there's a lot of value in the personal relationship that I have with my clients. I also know that there's a lot of information that I share with people on the very specific topics like resumes and LinkedIn and interviewing that probably can be delivered easily from an assistant. So I decided I'm going to dip my toe in the water. I'm going to try it out with my people in my Career Reset program, and I'll report back. I'll let you know how it's going. Thank you for being here this week. Thank you for listening to me riffing on AI, whether it is what is happening out there in the news, what's playing in the movies, or what I'm doing with AI. I hope that you took some benefit from this. I will be back on Monday with your regularly scheduled episode. If you're just discovering this show, make sure to follow. If you're an Apple Podcast, that's the plus sign in the upper right. In many other podcast apps, you can just click on follow or subscribe. And if you're finding this worthy, it would be a huge favor to me if you would write a review. All I need is 2 quick sentences, and what that does is it helps other people find this. Have a great week. That's a wrap for this week on Land Your Next Job. If this episode helped, please leave a quick review and subscribe wherever you listen. Share it with a friend in transition, and I'll see you next Monday. Let's land your next job together.